Which movie villain do you agree with? The puppet master from the original Ghost in the Shell movie. All he really asked for was asylum. There is a scene where, before going on a rampage, it demands asylum and rights to a trial to which the humans pretty much ignore. It's only after demanding its rights then being denied that it decides to go guerrilla. Edit. Yes, I realize the Bureau are the real bad guy, but PM is set up as the antagonist from the start. Colonel Kurtz would train young men to drop fire on people, but their commanders won't allow them to write F on their aeroplanes because it's obscene. At the recruitment station I went to, I got pulled aside and lectured for saying be back in high school and getting detention for it. Like, lady, you're hiring me to kill people. Didn't actually get through with the process, but still, chill the F out. The probe from the voyage home, all it wanted to do was talk to some whales. As I understand it, part of the idea of the movie was to have a compelling story without a real villain. The writers and director, Leonard Nimoy, understood that the probe didn't necessarily know the damage it was causing, as it was simply a side effect of its signals to the whales. Hade's not in any specific movie, but just the fact that he's always a villain despite him just chilling in the underworld, doing his job, and not causing mass genocide, like the other gods. The worst thing he did was kidnap a teenage girl, but compared to Zeus, the hero in all these damn movies, he's not that bad. Dr. Freeze. The guy just wanted to find a way to save his wife. Batman even once tried to help him with it. So many Batman villains either got the S end of some stick or another, or were just really misunderstood and trying to get through with disordered thinking. Part of the reason I love Batman stories. Doc Ock. I'm not saying that I'd sooner rob a bank than beg for grant money, but I get where he's coming from. I just like how that movie was made in the 2000s, but still had Ock carrying sacks with $$ out of the bank. Wicked Witch of the West. B dropped a house on my sister and stole her shoes, I'd be out for blood too. Barbossa and his crew from Pot C1, they found a bunch of gold coins sitting around, traded them as currency like anyone would, and were severely punished for no good reason. If you think about it, had the rum runners not showed up, Jack Wold starved to death, or shot himself on the island he was marooned on. So I'd say that Barbossa's mutiny was cause for punishment. The dad from Dirty Dancing. He was just trying to keep his underage daughter from effing the local troublemaker. A local troublemaker he logically thought had knocked up a girl, got her a dodgy abortion, and was now trying to F his daughter. Dude was just trying to protect his daughter from a predator, from the information he had. I agree with Ken from the Bee movie. His girlfriend got pissed at him for trying to kill a bee, something that he was allergic to, meaning it was potentially life-threatening. Frankly, Vanessa was terrible for dumping him because he tried to kill an insect. It's like getting mad at someone for refusing shrimp because they have a shellfish allergy. I know he's not the main villain, but he was the secondary one. Edit. Yes, Barry was a sentient bee, but Ken never knew that. I would also go a little nuts if a bee was slowly replacing me. On the shellfish metaphor, I'm sorry, it's not the greatest of metaphors, but I can't think of one right now. I'm open to suggestions. If Vanessa left him for a goddamn bee, then maybe they're better off without each other. Imagine being her ex and seeing her in a park a few days after the breakup and she's got a damn picnic blanket out and is flirting with a goddamn bee. Chief Inspector Dreyfus from the Pink Panther movies. Maybe I wouldn't have gone as far as he did, but I understand his frustration. Well, I'm not sure if it was the exact same character, but in A Shot in the Dark, the first movie, he purposefully assigns Inspector Clouseau to the case because he's being paid off, so he puts the most incompetent man he has on the job. So I think it's established that he's a straight up bad dude. T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Also, the Indominus Rex. You made a living kill machine with abilities that far exceed those of your measures to control it, and expect it to live its life in a small cage like a cat? Heck, even cats won't stay in cages. General Grievous's people were massacred by the GD for reasons that were false. He was then physically crippled for the rest of his life, outside of his exoskeleton, and was told that the GD were to blame. He destroyed as many as he could, and took their weapons as a trophy, to exact his revenge for the GD ruining his life, and pushing his people to the brink of extinction. It's even more tragic than that, when Count Dooku and the intergalactic banking clan offered to rebuild him as a cyborg. Grievous agreed on the condition they didn't alter his mind. But they did anyway. So while Grievous believed that he'd always been the cold-blooded GD hunter into the past, he probably wasn't as extreme as he is during the Clone Wars. The Grinch. He just wants to live alone in his gaff with a dog and the Who people won't stop bothering him. And if you're going by the movie logic, then he was bullied as a kid by his classmates and teacher, adopted, and lost his crush to the person he hates the most. No wonder he hates people. Not a movie, but Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. As an adult, you get it. You want sleep. You want cake. You want quiet. You want to be lazy. There were moments where you could be like I feel ya bro. Apostrophe. And of course, deep down there, you want to be the number one. Poison Ivy. All she wants is more plants and less destruction. In No Man's Land she moves into Central Park I think, and just stays there. No crime boss approach. No city takeover, just walks into the park. Batman goes into the park, walks back out, and suddenly the city starts getting fed by these fast growing plants. I don't remember if they explain that part, but of the villains in the Batman universe she's usually the least tyrannical, I think, is the best way to say that. Jared Butler's character from Law Abiding Citizen. That movie fell completely apart. Not from a movie, but Scar from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Buddy had all his people pretty much wiped out by the government, and then targets government alchemists in revenge. Brotherhood did such a good job with setting up Scar as a villain, and then slowly revealing the truth about the Ishvalan Civil War. Roy Batty. He's an escaped slave who is pissed his girlfriend and friends will die soon anyway from 4-year lifespans they were genetically engineered with. The main people he and his group kills or injures are morally bankrupt genetic engineers who became rich off slavery and corrupt racist cops. The book paints them in a very different light. They lack empathy and don't really understand why it's important. When I saw Spider-Man Homecoming, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Adrian Toomes, Vulture, actually has a point here. The government and Tony Stark completely fucked him over with malice aforethought. After that opening scene, I was like, fuck Tony Stark. I'm with Toomes on this one. Megamind. But if you were to say that he wasn't a villain, then hell BC he's right, there is no Queen of England. The wolves in The Day After Tomorrow. Just some hungry boys doing their best. The real villains of that movie were the fools who burnt the antique books for warmth, rather than literally everything else in the room, including replaceable books. Magneto. He always thought humans would try to destroy mutants, and he was right because they tried. He might have not been completely right, but man, it's hard not to feel some sympathy for him after the shitty hand that life dealt him early on. The bloke from Inferno. Zobrist or whatever. Though sadly they changed the ending from the book, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Brown really paved the way for a very compelling discussion with regards to population control. When you have a look at Malthus and the Malthusian growth model, it really does make you think whether or not Zobrist was right to do what he did after all. In the book, he releases the virus, which makes 1/3 of the world population infertile as a way of stunting population growth. Tries to release the virus which will kill 1/2 of the world population. I prefer the book, but the change they made in the film makes sense, as it's easier to communicate the prospect of immediate annihilation than it is to hint at gradual impact. The general from The Rock. The dude just wanted justice. Another one is the meter from RVB. I would react the same way if I went through the same stuff technically they suffered. General Hummel. Yes. So much yes. Ed Harris is a criminally underrated actor. He really makes you feel like the bad guys might actually be doing the right thing. In reality, they, like so many other villains, were doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. He totally redeems himself in the end though, so I don't see him as a villain in that film. More of an anti-hero. Gordon Ramsay from Kitchen Nightmares. Gordon Ramsay falls squarely in the anti-hero category. Think The Punisher, but for shitty restaurant owners. A family friend of mine, graduate from the Culinary Institute of America, who was born and bred in New Orleans, found himself in a blind set where Grams WAA the host. He goes on to tell me he's just the nicest guy. I forgot to mention that my friend hated seeing Gordon on Hell's Kitchen. He would go on and on about how he'd never put up with that kind of shit. Turns out it's an act. I love Grams even more after hearing that. Maleficent. I agree with this in the Disney adaptation. In the fairy tale she was really shitty. They didn't invite her because it was either give her silver plates and utensils when everyone else had gold, or not invite her. She could have just let them explain before making their child a ticking time bomb for her own death. The machines from the Matrix. The humans attacked first, going as far as blocking out the sun to end them. The machines create a new reality for the humans that is much better than the alternative of living in the sewers in the real world. The only reason Agent Smith became problematic was because Neo gave him new code. I really wanted the actual story to turn out that the machines recognized we had met the threshold our planet could survive and that we were doomed. They stuck us in pods while they waited for the doomed Earth to heal, essentially Wall-E. Close bracket. They continued to breed us, but in simulation, so we could still have choices in propagation. They tried to make a paradise. We rejected it, so they made Earth as nice as possible and tried to give our species the tools it needed to continue developing our culture. They left humans outside of the Matrix to serve as a control group. I think it would have been more compelling if the outliers were the result of the machines trying to leave as much intellectual autonomy in place as possible and dealing with an occasional near unacceptable annoyance to keep humanity's free will.